Welcome to Sunderland supporters from around the world. This is a very special production from Sunderland Football Club, which is led by myself, Frankie, the matchday announcer, and I'm joined by former player as well, Danny Collins. In light of yesterday's news from the EFL about ending the action in League One, we thought we'd get the reaction from our manager, Phil Parkinson. How you doing, Phil?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
How you been during lockdown? Is yourself and your family all well?
Yeah, everybody's well, thanks. Throughout all this, it's the most important thing. Everybody's health, obviously. Football and waiting for decisions has, taken over a lot of our time and thought process. But in reality, everybody's health has been the key through this coronavirus.
So we finally got a decision from the EFL yesterday on League One, and it will be concluded using points per game. What's your initial reaction just only a few hours after that confirmation from the EFL?
Yeah, I think we expected that decision to go that way, so it wasn't a surprise to us yesterday. Obviously, there was a period a few weeks ago where it looked like it would be an extended playoffs, and it was the EFL who actually suggested that, and that's why we thought there was a good chance of it. But very quickly we realised that wasn't going to happen. So, yesterday really was just what we expected. The key for us now is when's the next season going to start, and obviously for all clubs, not only when's it going to start, are supporters going to be allowed back into the stadium, and how many, what percentage of your capacity. So they're the key issues which we're now waiting for, which will determine a planning going forward into next season.
Do you think it was a fair way to conclude the season?
I think it's tough on a lot of clubs, and ourselves included, to have the season cut short with 8-9 games to go. Is hard on everybody. There's a lot of winners in this. Teams, just got in the playoffs, not been in them a great deal of time, end up in the playoffs. And obviously the two promoted teams in our league, there's other losers, notably Tranmere as well. I'd have preferred the season just to have been played out and waited till the expense of testing kind of wasn't going to be as important. In another month's time, you never know, you might not have had the need for testing. And that's what we were hoping for, that we just played the season out fairly, and the winners were the winners and the losers were the losers. But unfortunately, that's not to be. And now we've got to draw a line through that, not to have too many hard luck stories, because everybody's got them. Could have been this if we hadn't conceded this goal, or we've done this. And we've got to move on into next season. And we've now got a great opportunity to build the squad forward and make sure we're very, very strong going into next season.
It must have been frustrating for the players, though. And Danny, as a former player yourself, what would you have been thinking during this period of time?
Yeah, obviously, looking at it from Sunderland's point of view, you're right on the edge of the playoffs as it stands, hoping that you can get back to it with so little of the season left to play. You're in touching distance of the playoffs. And yeah, you've got to look after your own backyard. I can see how the voting's gone for a lot of the teams there. Obviously Coventry, Rotherham will be happy. Tranmere, as Phil's touched on, not so much. But from our point of view, disappointing that you're so close. There's a lot of teams in that cluster of teams looking to get back up in there. But as you say, it's gone against us. You could argue the fact, we've had 36 games to get ourselves into a good position. It hasn't quite gone that way. A case of regrouping now, as Phil's touched on, look to sort the squad out over the next couple of months or so, and then look to come back strong again next season now.
Before looking on to next season, Phil, do you look back at the season which has just ended and think, oh, if only we didn't concede that late goal there, or that individual player didn't have a good performance that game, or even yourself or your staff didn't make that decision on that day, because the margins are so small? Have you had a chance to reflect yet?
Well, it's inevitable. You do kind of have flashbacks to moments which would have made a difference. But I think we've got to steer clear away from that going forward, because, like I said, everybody in every season has got moments. So if that player hadn't got injured, or we'd won that game, everybody can look back. I'm looking forward and I think that's the best way. We've all got to have that kind of mindset. It has been unprecedented circumstances that we find ourselves in this situation, and we've just got to make sure that we utilise this time to the best of our ability to make sure we're really, really strong for next year, and I'm confident we'll do that.
And if it does start in September, that is an unprecedented amount of time of pre-season, probably the longest pre-season you're likely to ever have in your either playing or managerial career, Phil. Where do you start?
Well, I mean, that's the difficulty we're faced at the moment, and that's we're so keen to get this decision. When is the season going to start? Because the players have had a period where they've been working at home, which they've done great. They've, as you can imagine, very frustrated themselves. But now we've got to put a plan in place to make sure that we utilise the time to the best of our ability. Pre-season, we need 6 weeks. Normal. Do we extend that? Do we bring the players in a little bit earlier, then give them another break after that? It's all those decisions we've got to make, but we can't make it until we get the decision of when the season's going to start.
And of course, speaking of players as well, it's likely there's going to be lots of ins and outs, not just at Sunderland Football Club, but every football club in the football league, players out of contract. And, you know, obviously you'd like to strengthen the side, you'd imagine, in some places. Have you had any initial conversations with the owners in terms of, are you allowed to bring players in? And have you had many players which have expressed an interest to leave, set away from the club?
Well, obviously, yeah, we've been speaking the whole summer about, you know, our thoughts on players we'd like to keep, players we'd like to bring in, etc. You know, the terms of contract level and wages, every club will be determined for when supporters are allowed back into the stadiums, because that is going to have an impact on budgets going forward. So we've got to factor that in, which obviously we are. We're thinking of that, and we're making decisions, you know, first and foremost with the existing players we've got, which players we'd like to keep, which players, you know, unfortunately will be no longer with us. And once we've done that, we've got to look to recruit for next season. And that could be a long process throughout the summer, because, you know, it might be players who don't get contracts at Premiership or Championship clubs we can attract. But that's not going to happen for quite a while. So, you know, there's lots of different scenarios. We've got to make sure that we don't play our hand too early and sign players, and then a month down the line we could have got better players, value for money for what our budget's going to be.
And do we have scouts out at the moment, or were they out before this all happened, who are constantly looking for, you know, players to bring in, and you know, go the other way as well?
Yeah, of course. You know, we're constantly monitoring players, and, you know, as the season was drawing to its natural close, you know, we obviously were having meetings with our scouting department about areas we needed to look at to strengthen and potential targets, and we were already going through that process. So, yeah, obviously it's changed the landscape considerably, but it might change the landscape so that we can get a better quality of player for the money available to us. So, you know, we've got to box clever. We've got to be, you know, careful in our decision-making process of the players we want, the areas we need to strengthen, because we really want to go into this next season and make sure that, you know, we are covered in all areas, and we've got the quality needed to be right at the top of the league.
Danny, would this situation put the power back in the hands of the clubs rather than the players, because of all the single season contracts running down? There's going to be a lot of free agents out there, but it's going to be up to the clubs to cherry pick, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you can look at it from both ways, really. You know, as I say, looking at League Two last week, there's a lot of, you know, 10, 11 lads leaving clubs. Salford, obviously Grimsby, a few clubs I see who are letting lads go early. So there could be a chance to have a look in the lower leagues to try and get one or two diamonds in, if you like, if there's one out there. There'll be lads panicking. Obviously, they've got bills to pay and families to look after, and they'll be worried, you know, themselves with the amount of players that are going to be out of contracts. So it could be a chance to get one or two in early on. But at the same time, as Phil's mentioned there, you've got to look at the Premier League and the Championship squads that are going to be filtering down when they name their squads, and have a look what's available there. But he's got a good bit of time now to assess the squad. There's a lot of lads that need to be looked at. I think there's 11 out of contract currently. And go from there really and try and build. And as I say, get ready, when the start of the season comes around to have another good go at it next season and get back up into the Championship.
Phil, can you see any kind of either future legislation or rules being put in place by the EFL to protect clubs going forward? There was spoke about wage caps and that kind of thing at the start of this pandemic because of the situation that some clubs find themselves in now. Can you see the game moving or modernising in any kind of way down that kind of street, Phil?
Well, obviously there's been the talk of the salary cap, which is quite a complex debate going on at the moment. I'm not keen on it at all. I think clubs should be left to manage their own resources. We've already regulated to a certain degree. But yeah, I think that the wages are going to come down. I don't think there's any kind of argument on that. Where the market's going to fall and where people are going to pitch in wage-wise, it is difficult to predict at the moment. Agents will drive the market up or try. And obviously chairman and all owners and managers will want to get the best deal they can for each and every player. Now that's a scenario which gets played out every summer. Obviously this summer is slightly more complicated with the reasons we've spoke about. But as the weeks go by and the next month or so, then the picture will become clearer. And the minute the government, because I think it is going to be government led in terms of supporters coming back in the stadiums, give the clubs a green light. For that to happen, at what level of capacity we'll wait and see, then the planning can really start.
What about the money filtering down from the Premier League, Phil? Obviously, we're in a situation where League One and League Two couldn't afford to maybe do the testing as Championship even have done so. Do you think that there should be more money filtering down the leagues, and maybe the Premier League has to take some responsibility for that?
Well, right at the start of this, I said that I felt everybody in football should take a wage cut, whether it was 15%, whatever it was. And that pool of money used to protect lower division football, because the strength of the English game is the pyramid system. Everyone admires it around the world, because of the strength of all the divisions, not just the four. You're looking even the strength of the National League now. And I felt, there's enough money in the game to protect the industry itself rather than relying on outside sources. So yeah, that's what I felt could have happened at the start. It's very, very difficult because you need people to volunteer for those wage cuts and clubs to agree to that. But there's certainly enough money at the top end of the game to protect clubs, in Division 2 and Division 1 who are going to operate off very low attendances when the game restarts.
Danny, any thoughts on that?
No, as Phil's touched on there, it's an awkward one to weigh up. There's a lot of clubs in different situations. You look at ourselves on a match day, averaging 30,000 in League One. You're getting the gate coming through the door, but then you've got to look further down the table, and you've got the likes of Shrewsbury and your Accrington Stanleys, not touching 4,000 or 5,000. So it's a tricky situation. You can see which way they've gone with this in terms of wanting to wrap the season up. As I said there, sort out their own backyard really, and put it to bed, and then look to move on for next season. It's not the way we would have liked to have gone, obviously. Watching the Football League show last week, and Gareth Ainsworth popped up on there and said he would have liked to have finished the league. I find that a bit surprising, really, as they were sort of in free fall, really, with they down to 8th or 9th at the time, and they found themselves back up into 3rd in the playoffs now. So I'm sure they're quite happy, whereas ourselves and Darren McAntony this morning wasn't too happy with how the voting went yesterday, but that's life.
Yeah, we are where we are, and we're focusing now on the next season. Our season is now finished. Phil, have you been in contact with any of the players yet, and are they in good spirits, the ones you've spoke to?
I haven't spoke to any of them since yesterday's vote. Just put a message out on the group chat, just saying that we'll be in touch, shortly. Obviously, over the weeks, I've been touching base with as many of them as I can, seeing how they are. Basically, make sure they've been doing the work which has been set, which that they have been. So in the next week or so, we will touch base again. They already know, as of today, what they need to do over the next couple of weeks in terms of the training program. We all want to get back into the training ground, just to, get to know the lads again and get them back out on the training pitch in some form. But with the furlough scheme, and not knowing when the season starts, then obviously it's going to take a little bit of time.
And what are those ambitions for next season then? And have you got any plans yourself to increase the staff around you in the technical area or anything like that?
No, not the staff in the technical area. Obviously, the answer to that is no. The plans are purely to look at the areas we need to be better at on the pitch, fill those holes, with better quality, and make sure that the strength in depth is what it needs to mount a 46 game season. Which, likelihood here is obviously there's going to be more midweek games. Games are going to come thick and fast, and we've got to make sure we've got the resources to cope with that.
Danny, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask Phil there, obviously over this period, these last couple of months there, have you had a chance to sort of reflect? I think it's coming up to 8 months since you've been in charge of the club. Have you had a chance to look back on it and assess how you feel it's gone overall, really?
Yeah, well, obviously, I think everybody's had a lot of thinking time over this lockdown. So, yeah, you look at it, and like I said, when I came in, it was a difficult period, especially around those cup games. We're disjointed, and team selection, there was no consistency. We kind of got a way of playing and got into a good rhythm and a really, really good period. Just before the lockdown, we'd kind of dipped below the standard we'd set. We were looking to what we could do to rectify that. And I felt, we were capable at least of getting in the playoffs. And I think that's the big gripe with ourselves and Peterborough, that the top two, certainly the second place, was still up for grabs. Yeah. So, yeah, of course, there's things we can always do better. But I found we got the kind of performance level over a period of time, what we wanted from the lads. Even in a promotion winning season, you have little dips, and you've got to find the solutions to get out those quickly. And we just kind of, the draw at Gillingham, home to Gillingham, and the defeat at Bristol Rovers, we were working towards how we're going to come out of that and what we needed to do. And it's all football management and playing, Dan, as you know, is all about finding solutions. You find a way of playing and a personnel for so long, and it works. Teams kind of watch you and kind of do well to negate your strengths, and you've got to kind of come up with something else to going forward again. And we're at that stage going into the last 8 games of the season. But really enjoyed my time, so far at Sunderland. It's been a great experience. Just the potential of the club, as everyone knows, is absolutely huge. The supporters have been great, even though at the start, for me personally, it was difficult, but I totally understood that because the results were disappointing. But I feel we're setting the culture in the club, the work ethic required, and the desire and hunger the supporters want to see. And as you know, you've played for the club, Dan, if you pull on a Sunderland shirt, you've got to have a certain qualities to handle playing on the stage, but also for our supporters to warm to you. And we've got to make sure that we produce a team next year that our supporters can really relate to and get behind. Because as we showed that when we did that through a period after the turn of the year, the support of the Stadium Light was exceptional, and our home games became great for the players to play in, and they were really relishing that.
Well, hopefully,
is it difficult, Phil? Sorry, Frank. I was going to just add to that. Obviously, you came in at a time where when a manager comes in during the season, they either comes in because the previous manager's done well and found a job elsewhere, or things aren't quite going to plan, which was perhaps the case with Jack Ross, and you took over after the defeat away to Lincoln. Yeah. And then everyone expects this, they call it the bounce, don't they, where a new manager comes in, that's everything's going to be rosy and we're going to kick on, and obviously it didn't quite happen. Yeah. You're obviously coming in with somebody else's players. It's completely different, I guess, obviously, to starting a pre-season where you get your clean slate, you get your players in you want, and it's a completely different scenario, isn't it, to what it is like starting a season.
Without doubt, you've got the opportunity to have a whole pre-season with the players and also recruit the players and the characters you feel are going to be important in what is a 9-month season. And you've got to have the right people around you, the right quality level, the right types of people to get the job done. And, I think I'd say it's going to be an interesting summer, but I'm confident that we'll recruit the right people, and the supporters will have a very good team to watch next season.
Yeah, that's where I was going to come in. We don't know when the fans will be allowed back into the stadiums anywhere around football, to be honest. Have you got a message for those fans, Phil, as we move into these more unprecedented times?
Yeah, I think it's been difficult for the supporters at all clubs, and because football's such a big part of our country, but it's a massive part of the city of Sunderland, and our supporters love the football club and have got a huge passion for it. They've just got to stick with us through this period as much as they can. Like we've said already, it's probably something which will never happen again, and we've got to make sure that we all come through this as strong as possible, healthy as possible, and come back ready to really do the city of Sunderland proud.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time this afternoon, Phil. We wish you all the best
problem
for next season, and maybe we'll catch up with you soon on a podcast or something.
No problem, anytime. Thank you very much. Cheers, Danny.
Cheers, Phil. Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers, Phil.